Hi guys, a great question came through from a former colleague, and it's how to ask for a raise. A very challenging, tricky question. We're going to tackle it in numerous steps, and it's not going to be the shortest video that I produce. So hang with me. This is such a critical question to answer and a difficult one, and I do believe that there are a number of different paths you can take, but I basically spent a lot of time doing research and thought back to my own past, and this is what I came up with. Step one, are you crushing it, right? It's going to be really critical that you are just excelling right now, that you're doing a really awesome job, and just that you have been hitting it on all cylinders, and that there's going to be a recognition of that your boss knows that you're doing really well, or your lead knows that you're doing really well. And so that's kind of step one. Um, Step two is really about timing. So have you been crushing it this week, this month, this quarter? And the last piece is probably going to be the most critical. If you've been crushing it from the last quarter, that's probably going to be a great time to go in and ask this question. A specific time of year is really important too. Are you coming up on your bonus time, your merit time, just your annual performance review? Because that's a good time to really push for it. Otherwise, maybe that kind of 6 month window where you're 6 months away from it, and you kind of feel like it's far enough away where you can be pushing and asking now. But think about it, if it's 3 months away and you're asking for it, that planning process probably takes at least a month, month and a half, 2 months. So if you're going in, you just want to really think about the timing, and that one's really just tough. And then the logistics. I know from a timing perspective, you just want to be thinking about, do you do weekly one-to-ones? Do you not do weekly one-to-ones? Logistics are really important. You have to do it face-to-face, no phone, no video. You want to be there in person. And then, is your boss a person who gets excited on Mondays or Fridays? So really think about that piece of timing, and then timing of day. Do you want to do it later in the day, earlier in the day? When is your boss kind of in that good mood? You want to always try and catch him in a good mood. So that's important too. So let's talk about, before you start, the basics. A lot of people know that I talk a lot about keeping it real and simple. So be real. Be genuine. Don't be scripted. The way that you're not going to sound scripted is you're going to be prepared. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Always come from a place of gratefulness. So in your pitch that you're giving for your raise, be extremely grateful for the opportunity, for the organization, etc. That's going to be critical. Always use positive words. Don't throw in any negative words. Don't even use the word but. Right? Really keep this positive flow going. That's going to be critical. Then you want to get a little perspective. That's a really basic item. Think about it from your boss's perspective. And as you're crafting and putting this item together to ask for the raise, really be thinking about it from their perspective. And that could be a lot of different things. Are they the ultimate decision maker? What is your company's overall compensation philosophy? You really have to be thinking about within the bands too, right? From an internal equity perspective, are you gonna, if you get a 10 or 15% raise, are you gonna bump out of the range of everybody else doing the same role at the same level? So these are really important basic items to be thinking about. And then lastly, just what is the overall organization's compensation policy? So timing, again, we're talking about coming up on a really successful time. And so as you've done this, now you start to prepare. And what you really want to be thinking about is value add. And what is your value add, and where are you exceeding in the core responsibilities for the role? So if the role has 5 core responsibilities, you want to be looking at each, thinking about each, and talking about how you're exceeding in each area. And maybe you're exceeding in 3 out of 5 and you think that's enough, but really be thinking about value, have it typed out, and actually almost you should have a document so that if your manager said, hey, if you could put something together for me that I could bring to the higher ups, boom, say, thanks, Sue, that's great. I'll email it to you right after we meet so you have it in writing. So you've prepared, you're not slowing down the process, you've already thought about that piece. The second and probably maybe the biggest piece of advice I can give you is prep for this conversation. It's like a job interview. I mean, this is a critical conversation that you just want to make sure you're going in and nailing. You should be practicing with a colleague, with a friend, with a family member, but it shouldn't sound scripted. So it should be this nice balance of having practiced, but also, sounding prepared, but not scripted. So the actual negotiation. So I truly believe that after you've given your value add, there's a couple of different ways to approach actually asking for the raise. We're finally getting to that piece. And so, how do you finally ask for the raise? There's two different ways. The first way is more challenging, where you say, Sue, based on what I've said and based on the company's history, what you've seen from top performers, what type of raise could I expect if it's approved? Sit back and listen. See if Sue will give you any sort of idea, a number. Probably not, right? But if you throw it into her court, you haven't put yourself in this pigeonhole where you're thinking 10 and she's thinking 20, right? If Sue isn't really going to give you a number and probably kicks it back to you, that's probably going to be about 90% of the time, then what I strongly recommend is that you have a percentage in mind, and it's a high percentage, right? Don't go in with a 5% ask or a 10% ask. It should be 15%, maybe more, and don't push too much, but you want to push appropriately enough where the percentage is really going to play in your favor. Percentage is better than an actual number because percentages sound like a lower number. Instead of 15,000, 15%, it just mentally it sounds like less. And then again, you want to sit back and just listen a little bit and see what Sue has to say. Don't start rambling. This is a whole huge critical point, and there are lots of critical points when asking for a raise, but really listen. Don't start rambling. That's where the preparation piece comes in. You'll know what you want to say, and then you'll sit back and listen. Next, expect questions. There's no way you're going in this conversation and your lead's going to say, yes, I'm going to give you a 30% raise, right? So expect questions. Expect questions. I'm trying to think what I wrote down about, just going back to your values. And then you might have to be asked about comparing yourself to Jen or to Tim. And just always speak positively if asked to compare to others. These questions, there's going to be a lot of them, so I would expect to just Google, some expected questions, and again, that will go into your prep. Last step is if they're willing to consider it, say, Sue, I'm going to get you that email right away. Can we ask to get a response within a week, within a few days, today, however much you need to push? And then the last piece, if it's a no right in the meeting, or if a no does come back, you have already had a positive response to that and say, Sue, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to hear me out on this. And so what I'd really love to do is I'd love to create a 3-month action plan of basically items that I need to get to, levels I need to get to, things I need to accomplish in order to get a raise. And then you guys put together a plan and you work on a plan together. And then if you find out ultimately that a raise just isn't in the cards, then you start thinking about other steps. I know that this is a lot. I'm going to try and do a follow-up doc because it's a lot of information, but just go in prepared, make sure you're crushing it, really sit back and listen, and come from a grateful place, do the basics right, and you'll have a lot of success. If you like, please like. If you have any comments, especially about more content you want to see, that's a huge one for me. I love to chat about anything that people want to hear about. And then if you think that this ongoing content is helpful, please subscribe. I hope that the content is going well and people are enjoying it. Thank you so much.